When we talk about AI bias, people often frame it as an ethics problem, which it is, but it goes beyond that. Bias in AI has transitioned from an ethical failure to compliance and trust risk. If your model discriminates, you don't just risk bad headlines, you risk lawsuits, regulatory action, and losing customer trust. AI promises efficiency, scale, and objectivity, but the algorithms also often amplify bias. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Virtual CISO, where we break down the intersection of security, compliance, and business growth in the age of AI. On today's episode of Securing AI, we will be discussing what happens when compliance meets ethics, aka bias. Let's start with understanding why bias is a business and compliance risk. Bias is not new. We've seen it in credit scoring, hiring algorithms, healthcare predictions. What's different with AI is a scale and opacity. A biased dataset can silently create discriminatory outcomes across thousands or millions of users, and even limit market reach, exclude customers, and create inefficiencies. A lack of transparency makes it nearly impossible for customers or auditors to understand why decisions were made. And regulators are catching up. Under GDPR, the AI Act, and even the sector rules, bias outcomes are now deemed compliance failures. Bias has pivoted from being just an ethical problem to an enterprise risk category. ESG and responsible AI frameworks are now becoming part of due diligence. So, let's discuss where and how bias creeps in. Let's break it down, starting with training data. If your data set skews towards one population, the model will replicate those biases. You want to use diverse data sources to broaden representation. Moving on, you have the labeling process. Human annotators bring their own assumption, and that is bias at the source. You also have model design. Certain architectures amplify existing imbalances in data. You want to leverage interpretable models where possible and document decision-making logic. Then you have deployment context. A model trained for one use case may reinforce bias when repurposed elsewhere. And of course, we have shadow AI. Teams experimenting with unvetted AI tools may introduce bias without governance. The issue is, bias in AI is systemic and has ripple effect. It's not a single bug that you can patch or debug. Now, what's your role as a founder in AI bias? Bias requires the same discipline as you would with maintaining the effectiveness of your security controls. Starting with governance, you want to tie AI development to formal oversight, such as AI risk committees or model approval boards. Also, ensure documentation. Make sure you can prove how data was sourced, labeled, and validated. Transparency isn't optional, it's evidence. Moving on, you have testing and validation. Include fairness testing in your QA process. Treat it like penetration testing for bias. Conduct regular testing of datasets and models for discriminatory patterns. Then you have the third-party risk. If you rely on external models such as OpenAI or Anthropic, demand visibility into their bias mitigation practices. And of course, you have regulatory mapping. Map output to compliance requirements such as GDPR fairness, AI Act risk categories, and sector-specific rules. I have put together some practical guardrails that you can apply, expanding on the traditional security principles to bias. Starting with confidentiality, you want to protect sensitive attributes such as race, gender, or health data from improper use. Then, with respect to integrity, you want to validate data set for skew and ensure explainability of model decisions. Moving on to accountability, you want to ensure that you assign ownership for bias testing. Don't let it fall between legal, compliance, and engineering. Make someone own it. And of course, monitoring is key. Bias isn't static. Model retrain and drift. Monitor for disparities across demographics over time. Lastly, red teaming is critical. Just like with security, simulate attacks or scenarios that exposes bias. AI bias sits at the crossroad of ethics, compliance, and brand trust. Ethical AI is about building inclusive products that resonate globally. The companies that will win will be those that treat fairness as part of their risk and compliance framework, not as a marketing statement. Your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 may not require bias testing today, but customers, regulators, and auditors will. Leading with fairness now creates a trust moat that competitors will struggle to replicate. Bias in AI is no longer a moral debate. It's a compliance obligation and a security responsibility. Treat it with the same rigor you treat vulnerabilities, because in the eyes of your customers, bias is a vulnerability. Thank you so much for tuning into the Virtual CISO. If you are building AI and want to ensure that your systems are not only compliant but also ethical, visit us at thevirtualciso.ca or email us at info@thevirtualciso.ca. Because when it comes to AI, the question isn't, does it work? It is, does it work fairly, and can we prove it? Until next time, I am your host, Olivia.